Alright folks, here we go. I am Uncle Dogmatica for Pyromaniac.com, and this is the 2010 Fantasy Outlook video for one Mr. Ray Rice. Alright, first of all, what a beast this kid turned out to be. He didn't exactly come out of nowhere. You know, a lot of people had him pegged as a good sleeper last year, but holy cow, the numbers that he put up were pretty staggering, to be quite honest. I don't think anybody could have predicted the numbers he put up. They were pretty insane. Let's talk about Ray Rice, the person. First of all, he's an interesting character. Growing up, he had an interesting life. At 1 year old, when he was 1 year old, his dad was killed in a drive-by shooting, so he had to deal with living with one parent for a little while. Then his uncle, who helped his mother raise him, got killed by a drunk driver when he was 11 years old. So his mother was left all alone to take care of him and his three siblings, and she was just I don't mean to say just but she was a special education teacher, which obviously doesn't pay all that much. So to bring up four kids, got to throw some kudos out there to Mrs. Rice, if you're listening. Good woman. Anyway, so Ray Rice is pretty used to dealing with the short end of the stick, being 5'8" and all, trying to play in a big man sport. He's seen his fair share of adversity. His college career, he played at Rutgers, which is a relatively smaller school. It's not one of those big-time football programs. But his college career pretty much ended up the same way that his pro career is going so far. His freshman year, they took one look at him, pretty much looked right over him, and said, "Why don't you sit on the bench for a little while? Maybe you'll get your turn at some point." And by the end of his freshman year, of course, he took over that starting job, ended up with over 1,000 yards, but he only had like 5 TDs. They weren't ready to give him the ball at the goal line. They weren't ready to give him those inside runs and stuff because he was so small, and that's pretty much exactly what happened with him in the Ravens. Of course, his second year in college, his sophomore year, he ended up putting up insane numbers. He had 20 touchdowns, and then I think the next year after that, he had 23 touchdowns. So, I mean, he knows how to score. The kid can pretty much score from anywhere on the field. Baltimore saw that last year, especially in that playoff game against the Patriots when he ripped one off for over 80 yards against them when they just absolutely destroyed Brady and Belichick and that whole crowd. But, he doesn't have, like, Chris Johnson-like speed. He's a really quick kid, but he doesn't have that type of speed. He can get to the outside, and he'll put moves on you like another shorty that the NFL saw a while back, Barry Sanders. Doesn't have quite the moves of Barry Sanders, but he's almost just as shifty as he is. He's a lot of fun to watch, but that's actually a pretty good comparison, Barry Sanders to Ray Rice. We'll see what happens in a few years. Anyway, the kid can pretty much do whatever he wants on the field. He can run to the outside. He can also plow through the middle. He's got awesome vision. He's got this low center of gravity, which gives him this unbelievable, insane strength. He's actually a ton stronger than people give him credit for. He has no problem in the backfield blocking. He's not afraid of anybody. He doesn't care that they're 7-8 inches taller than him and over 100, 120 pounds more than him. He'll stand up to anybody coming at him, and he blocks pretty well. I mean, if he eventually gets beat because size will eventually win out and they pretty much bowl him over eventually, but it's not because he's afraid of him. He's not really afraid of anything. He's a strong kid who's willing to stick his nose into anybody's business. He has no problem doing that. Anyway, he can also catch the ball in the backfield. He's probably one of the best at it in the game today, probably top 5 guys in the game, and he's only in his, he just completed his second year. He led the league last year in receptions out of the backfield, led the league in receiving yards out of the backfield. That was pretty impressive. Led the league in targets as well out of the backfield. He's actually young as hell, too. He's 23 years old. He came into the NFL at a really young age. Just to put that in perspective, a couple of rookies this year coming out, C.J. Spiller, Montario Hardesty, they're both right at the same age, basically. Maybe they're a couple months younger, but they're pretty much the same age, and Rice has a couple years in the NFL on them already. There's actually a few backs that were taken later on in the draft, Desi Kareem, James Starks, a couple of those guys. They're actually older than he is. So he's got a long ways to go. But he does have a lot of tread on his wheels, actually. He put up a ton of carries back there at Rutgers. But anyway, in the basic scoring system, he was 4th in the league in fantasy points. behind the big three and CJ 28, AP 28, and MJD. But in the PPR format, he came in second. If you're taking him in your league in a PPR format, you might want to take him in those top three. I know that those top three guys are really tough to pass up, but Rice could sneak into the number 2 slot like he did this year, and maybe even number 1. We'll see what happens with Chris Johnson this year with his holdout and everything. But other than that, he was 6th in rushing yards on the year with 1,339 yards. He didn't have a lot of TDs though, like what happened with him his freshman year at Rutgers. He only had 7 TDs. He's got that vulture, that $3.6 million a year guy that's going to be playing again with them this year in Willis McGahee. He vultured away a lot of touchdowns. I think McGahee had 12 touchdowns last year. But besides that, the coaches, when it comes down to the goal line and it comes down to goal line situations and short yardage situations, they know what they have in Rice. The guy's a multi-dimensional back who can pretty much do anything on the field and does do anything on the field. So if they can lessen the amount of hits on him, they will. And what they do is they basically just, they give it to McGahee, let him take the hits, get the touchdowns. They know they're going to score. Rice can do it, and eventually he's going to get those touchdowns. In fact, this year I'm thinking that he's actually probably going to be up around 10 touchdowns this year. But it was McGahee, and McGahee will still be there again this year. So that could be a negative going into this next year. He had over 2,000 yards from scrimmage last year, which is one of only 32 players to do that ever in the history of the NFL. So that's pretty impressive. For the second year in the league, you can't deny it. That's amazing. It's the same thing like what CJ 28 did this year. Those two guys are tops in the league already, and they're so young. But anyway, he's a top 5 back in any format. You'll love having him on your team. This year, it looks like the offense is going to open up even more for him with the addition of Bolden and Stallworth. People are going to have to play back in the pass. They won't be able to bunch the middle against him. So I'm looking to see him get actually even some more yardage and some more yardage out of the backfield catching passes as well. So basically, take him in your top 4 guys, maybe 5. If you're in the PPR league, take him 1 or 2 if you want. You'll be extremely happy watching him every week as your number 1 back. All right, thanks a lot, guys. Ray Rice, great player. Much love. Later.